Welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
I'm Shannon Lawrence.
And I'm MB Partlow.
Quick content warning before we get started. This podcast may contain language and disturbing content, so enter at your own risk. Yep, and hi.
Hi. Hi. Could I be any perkier?
Could I be
any perkier?
That's good timing, considering. Yes. It's very Chandler-esque. Could I be?
Thank you. That's who I was channeling.
Channeling Chandler?
Yes. But I would not be, I was like, can I repeat that? I cannot. I'll just slur my way through today.
I meant to have a cough drop, but I did not have a cough drop, and it is too late now. Because we are recording 3 today.
Yes.
Because I'm going on vacation.
How dare you?
And there are holidays and shit like that.
Yep.
So we're trying to get a little bit ahead. So at this point, if I'm croaking at you, you will just have to deal with it.
You do have some water, though.
Yeah. I've been trying, I brought in 1 bottle and I've tried to drink 1/3 for each one. So that's already less than I normally would.
I am on my 3rd glass of water because I didn't get the big giant cup. I got a real glass this time.
I've been having problems getting those clean. It's like I added the chia seeds to my smoothie, and now for some reason it's not chia seeds stuck in there, but this cups are being stained with my smoothies, and so I keep having to put them back in. And I'm like, if you weren't so lazy and if you would just soak them and hand scrub them, this could be done now, Shannon. I don't have time.
Don't talk like that to yourself.
Don't do it. I was trying something and I was like, I basically have 3 jobs, and they were like, you have 4 jobs, and I was like, well, no, because I had 2 jobs and we made it into 1 job at my day job. So it's now technically 1 job. And they were like, you're also a mother. And I was like, cool, but that's not what I was talking about. But yeah. So I watched The Naiad. Have you watched, or Naiad? I don't think it's The Naiad. It's Naiad.
No. What is it?
It's on Netflix and it kept popping up. And I've long been a Jodie Foster fan.
Mm-hmm.
In as much as I fan over anybody.
It's got Annette Bening in it.
It has Annette Bening in it. And she's playing a woman who swam, I'm going to not have the exact, it was like 103 miles from the bottom island of Key West to Havana.
Yes, I have heard of it. Was it good?
Oh gosh, it was really good. It was intense because I thought in my head and from seeing the little previews and stuff, I thought this was a one-time thing that she swam, that other people swam it too, I thought maybe it was some sort of marathon that multiple people did together.
Like swimming the English Channel.
Yes. No. No, this was just her determined to do this thing that had been theorized by swimmers and stuff for so long, but figured to be impossible because nobody could possibly swim for 2 days straight with no break. There was no break. Right. There was no, I'm going to get out and sleep and then get back in the water at this point and anchor here. That's not how it worked. It was a full direct multi-day swim nonstop where she would come over and she would tread water and the person would feed her like noodles or something that could get into her easily in the water, give her one of these, the sipping things from the packs so that she could drink it there and then continue swimming so they could keep nutrients in her.
Wow.
And you know what? They didn't address how one would go to the bathroom. I assume you'd pee while you swam, but I'm thinking, did your body shut down and did you not then need to defecate? Because they never covered that. That's just my own curiosity. It annoys me when stories skip details like that because I feel it's an important detail.
Yes.
I would like to know how you defecate while swimming. Do you just move the bathing, stop, tread water, go to the bathroom and keep going, I guess? Or does your body, because there's certain things where your body will just shut that down. Maybe it does that. But then I was thinking of that runners thing. What is it called? They have a name for it, but runners will get diarrhea and have no control over it. And I was like, wouldn't you think that would happen also with a swimmer for days? But anyway, it's multiple failed attempts where things happen. Like she runs into box jellyfish. That one was crazy and awful.
No.
Yes. And
thank you for watching it. Now I don't have to.
Oh, no, it's good, though. It really is. But I have to say, Jodie Foster is only 4 years younger than Annette Bening.
Really?
And if you look at that, it doesn't look like there's Jodie Foster is aging amazingly.
Yes.
She looks amazing. She is so buff. Like, Annette Bening's playing a swimmer, and Jodie Foster is buffer than Annette Bening. And don't get me wrong, Annette Bening looks great. She looks like she's aging naturally. She obviously had to get in good shape to play the swimmer. I'm sure she spent time. Who does Jodie Foster play? Her coach and good friend. Yeah. And so she's the one that's on that boat, staying awake with her the whole time, while everybody else is taking their stints and coaching her and watching to make sure she doesn't need to be pulled out and pulling her out against her wishes if she feels like you're about to die.
Were there sharks involved?
There were sharks involved. Oh. They had worked with these marine people, experts, who had some sort of like a signal that would actually scare the sharks away. And it did work. They had these poles, so if they saw a shark coming, saw the fins or whatever, they would get in with these poles with a tennis ball in because they maintained, they were like, we're not here to harm the sharks. We're in their world. But we will, this ball they would use to like bonk them in the nose, basically.
Right.
So when they saw a shark coming, they jump in the water in their wetsuits with their poles to kind of get around her to scare the shark away. But the signal thing worked.
Huh.
It's very interesting. I'm telling you, it's good. It's really good. It's intense. It's a feel-good thing. Yeah.
Wow.
And they have clips of the real woman and the real...
Oh, that would be cool.
My God. Her coming up. There's like the lips are swollen and you've been in salt water for days.
Ugh.
And she had to complete it. She had to get onto shore herself and walk all the way onto shore after swimming for, could you imagine the spaghetti legs you would have?
Yeah.
And she had to, so it's
and also
stilted.
When you're in water, you're weightless.
Yeah.
Or you feel weightless.
Right. And then suddenly you have weight.
Out.
Yes.
Oh.
So just why it's very intense. And nobody could touch her because then it would be eliminated and she would not set the record. So the people are there trying to separate and push everybody back because they're like, do not touch her. You will ruin this entire fucking thing. It took her 4 years to do it.
If you touch her, we will kill you.
Yes. And so they're having to physically hold, and there's a crowd there to see her, but physically hold them back. And then she gets it, and then she's strapped onto a gurney, right? And then, and they're asking her questions, and she's trying to talk with that swollen mouth. And it was just like, damn. And but that was real footage. So it was fun to go back and see like how well they did casting the two women. Because you put them next and you're like, I know exactly who they're playing.
Cool.
It was perfect.
Okay. Have you seen, or are you intending to see, the new horror movie, Thanksgiving?
Yes. I heard it's pretty bad, and I was like, duh. It is an Eli Roth. So, but somebody did, like, creative kills. And then this extreme horror author was posting, he was like, I saw it, so you don't have to. And he was like, creative kills my ass. Sure, they are creative, but they're over in seconds instead of being done. The way a horror author would look at it, right? Like, okay, well, that does sound disappointing, but I'm still all over it because I saw the preview and I was like, oh my God, there's only like two other Thanksgiving horror films. There's a billion Christmas
What
ones.
are the other?
Okay, I don't remember their names. Okay. Like one of them is like Thanksgiving or something, and it's totally ridiculous.
I think I've heard of that
indie film. And then the other one is they're like pilgrim reenactors or something, and they get invited into the house because the mom's like, we're going to do this upright, and we're going to actually learn something. And so she brings these supposed reenactors into the house, and they're just totally batshit crazy, and they're acting like they're full on the pilgrims. And so it's like, it starts with like speaking down to the women and telling teenage daughter that she's dressed inappropriately, and then punish, it's just this weird, it's a really weird movie. It's not bad. Totally would recommend people watch it at least once if I knew the name of it, but I don't.
Looking forward to watching Krampus again.
I've been wanting to watch the original Black Christmas, and I'm like, listen, your own rule is that nothing starts until after Thanksgiving is done. So I've not watched it. But then Jeffrey put on Bad Santa, and I was like, whatever, so we watched Bad Santa.
Well, that's different. Bad Santa. I have not rewatched that, but the first time we watched it, we laughed so hard because we had it on DVD, I think. We had to keep stopping and going back because we laughed so hard. It's like, what the fuck did they say?
he is just, I told Jeffrey, I was like, he's not saying anything I'm not thinking right now. Like, when he's dealing with the poor kid and stuff like that.
Oh my God.
And then he's like, what the fuck, kid? And I'm like, exactly what I want to know. You are so weird. But he's also reprehensible and disgusting and pees in the suit. And then I told Jeffrey, I was like, every time he's having sex with the Gilmore Girls actress, because she's Jewish. She thinks that because she's Jewish, she has a fantasy about Santa. And so he always has to wear this Santa hat.
Ew.
Like every single time I'm just thinking, he has peed in those clothes. He has probably vomited on them because he is an alcoholic.
So now, when Thing 1 comes home, I get her to watch like an 80s movie with me, one or two. So I was thinking this time, so we're recording this before Thanksgiving, just before Thanksgiving. So I'm thinking when she's home for Thanksgiving, I'm going to get her to watch Romancing the Stone. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to follow it up with, oh shit. I can't think of the name of the movie. It's the same people.
Jewel of the Nile.
No, but it's the horrible
the divorce one?
Yes. What the hell is it called? We talk about this all the time.
I love that movie.
War of the Roses.
War of the Roses.
So I think it would be a good juxtaposition to watch Romancing the Stone.
I have done that just on my own, watch those two in a row.
Yes.
Because Jewel of the Nile is okay. It's no Romancing the Stone for sure.
That is very true.
But War of the Roses is an immaculate black comedy.
It is one of the finest black comedies.
Yes.
Now, did you ever watch She-Devil?
Yes.
Did you like it as a black comedy?
I liked the movie better than I liked the book, I think.
The book was, okay, I love a black comedy.
Yeah.
The darker, the better. It needs to be crusty and charcoaly on the edges. However, I found the book was so intensely dark.
It was.
It was hard to...
I was like, I did not expect this.
I found it hard to laugh at. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think... Okay, so it's a British book in an American movie. I think they did a really good job adapting it. And I just rooted so hard for Roseanne's character.
Yeah.
Because... And you hated Ed Begley Jr.
Yes.
And Meryl Streep was in it. Yeah. And she, oh my God. Okay, maybe we got to watch that too.
Uh-oh. Yeah, no, War of the Roses, that's pretty much an annual watch for Jeff and I, because we both enjoyed that one. And then since rediscovering Serial Mom, I can't believe that it had fallen off my radar because...
Oh yeah, I haven't rewatched that.
Oh, God, it's so good.
It is.
So good. So it just took them a while. She had to get past where she had to be the bombshell every time for her to be free to do these things. And she was warned against doing Serial Mom. They were like, it's going to destroy your career. And she was like, I have rheumatoid arthritis. That's already going to destroy my career. So I'm doing it.
She's back to doing guest spots though.
Yes.
Which I was very happy to see because she can act circles around. And she was when Michael Douglas did that little series on, was that?
Yes.
The Kaminsky Method.
She
was on that as his
ex. That was such a supreme moment.
That made me so happy. So very happy. Because at first you don't see her, you just hear her on the phone. And then and I was like, oh, is that really her? And
right, you hear her voice and you're like, I know who that is.
Oh, yeah.
Even though her voice has changed now, it's still very much a distinct voice.
Oh my God, yes.
So, yeah. Yeah. So
poor Lucy. She's like, great. And she's listening to this, so she's like, yep, and we watched what?
What did you end up watching?
I will have to report back later.
That's funny. All right.
I should write those down or I'll forget them now.
I'm going to...
While you start, I'm making notes to myself.
I'm going to do the confession killer. Again, I had said that I was going to follow up. So this is Henry Lee Lucas. And he wasn't at first known as the confession killer. That's a fairly new moniker for him after some stuff that'll come up. Lucas was born August 23rd, 1936 in Virginia. Like his bestie, Ottis Toole, he had a troubled childhood. Though I feel like Toole's was more about being victimized than Lucas's. And Lucas's was more about he was batshit crazy from the beginning. But there was also a lot of shit. I mean... Did anybody have a good childhood then? I just don't know. Because we certainly see a lot of really terrible childhoods back then.
You see really terrible childhoods
Everywhere.
All the time.
Yeah. At 10, he got into a fight that resulted in loss of vision in one eye, courtesy of an infection.
God.
It kept saying he lost his eye, but it looked to me in pictures like, I don't think that was a glass eye. Nobody ever said glass eye. So I think proper would have been he lost his vision. And that's why I'm saying it, because he clearly has an eye of some sort. It doesn't move, obviously. And his eye is a little squinted, but there's an eye. So there you go.
I feel they would have mentioned if he had a glass eye.
I feel they would have too. They usually do. So I think because he lost his vision. It was with his brother, this fight.
Ooh.
Yeah. He was known to act strangely around people and has been said he was not only cruel to animals, he practiced bestiality. And I had to read some really terrible things about that, but I'm not going to relate because they're still running on a loop through my head.
Thank you.
And I was deeply disturbed.
Really, really, really thank you for not sharing those.
And hurt by it. His mother was a sex worker in backwoods Virginia who enjoyed making her son watch her with clients. She would also parade him in drag through town. I don't know why. And his father worked on the railroad, but had an accident at work that severed his legs. It didn't say when, like in his childhood, this happened. I don't know if he had an issue with alcohol before the accident, but he certainly did after. In a December 1949 blizzard, his father, drunk off his ass, suffered hypothermia and died while on the way home. I was like, was he in a chair? Did he have fake legs? Nobody fucking said. Don't tell me his legs were severed and then say on his way home from like a bar.
Severed? At the hip? At the knee? Halfway down the calf?
So annoying.
Yes, I also want the details.
And his father had been abusive in his life, I am sure, especially after the drinking took off, but that's why I don't know when that drinking started. But his death appears to have freed his son in some way because he ran away right after that death.
Okay.
Like Toole, Lucas became a drifter, sticking to Virginia at first, where, Toole stuck around Jacksonville and kind of got wider and wider. Mm-hmm. The first crime he was convicted of was burglary in Richmond, multiple burglaries. He committed over a dozen of them before getting caught, but on June 10th, 1954, he received a conviction and 4 years in prison, which would have gotten him out in 1958. However, he escaped in 1957 and hid out for 3 days before they tracked him down. After being put back in prison, they didn't go into this, but since he was there later than the 4 years, he obviously got a little extra time, and he ended up released September 2nd, 1959. Okay. From there, he headed to his sister Opal's house in Michigan, where he met a woman who had been writing to him in prison. They'd been pen pals, and to whom he had gotten engaged. But when his mom, now 71, came out to visit at Opal's for Christmas, she didn't like the fiancé. Which probably, it makes me think she probably wasn't a terrible person because his mother was a terrible person. They got into a bunch of fights about the fiancé, but there was a kind of final one with his mom insisting he should come home and care for her. So I was thinking he's the oldest. It didn't say if he had any other siblings. I only know about Opal.
It's odd because usually it's a daughter.
Right. But no, she's telling her son he needs to come home and take care of her. I'm old now.
She did parade him through town in drag.
Right? So I guess it counts. But you didn't take care of him. Why should he take care of you? Lucas stabbed his mother in the neck during the fight, later claiming he hadn't known what he was doing until it was done. He kind of did a whole, I slapped her in the neck. And
with a knife in my hand.
But then he was like, then I looked down at my hand and there was a knife. The whole I dissociated thing right there. We've already talked about it. In fact, he said he hadn't understood why she fell, and he'd gone to pick her up, discovering the wound in her neck. And, again, he said he saw that he knew he hit her neck, but then there was blood and a wound, and he was like, what? So, that's his claim.
Yeah.
Opal came home to find her mother. Actually, he thought she was dead, so he just took off. And she comes home. Her mother is still alive, lying in her own blood, and so she called an ambulance, but it did not get there in time.
Oh,
so she.
Well, I can't feel this was a terrible.
I know. I really don't feel for her at all. I'm like, probably it was fair that he got to kill his mother. For everything else, he's a shit human being. But I'm like, yeah, that's fine.
That's rather karmic.
It's fine. Her cause of death was actually a heart attack, basically caused by the injury or the incident or whatever.
With the blood loss.
He'd fled back to Virginia. He got stopped in Ohio for a warrant, and the warrant discovered. And so they take him back to Michigan. He claimed self-defense, saying she'd hit him with a broom and he'd fought back. But they weren't buying the self-defense thing. So they sentenced him to 20 to 40 years. He served only 10 for second-degree murder, a part of that in a mental hospital because he did attempt suicide twice. He was released in 1970 due to overcrowding. I was like, I get releasing robbers, burglars, low-level drug things when it's overcrowding, but you released a murderer who already had a history of burglary before that, like not a one-time offender. Okay, cool. He claimed that his mother was not his first murder. That honor was bestowed upon a 17-year-old girl named Laura Burnsley in 1951. He'd met her at a bus stop and made a move on her, but she turned him down. I think he must have been giving her a ride or something. When he pressed the point, she fought back, so he killed her by strangulation, then buried her body in the woods. He said he'd wanted to try out the sex thing he'd been watching for so long. I'm assuming a reference to his mother's sex work. He would have been 14 at the time of the attempted rape and murder. Her body was never found, and he retracted his confession later. Well, I feel like 14's actually really late. Like, could he really have not had any other... At that time, for a male, he really didn't have any other...
But at 14, how could he have been giving her a ride?
No, that's true. So I'm like, so they must have wandered away from the bus station. Because I was trying to figure, I'm like, he obviously didn't do it at the bus station unless it was abandoned at the time.
Or it was late.
It's an empty one and it's not a manned one. Yeah, that all confused me. So I was like, okay, sure.
They leave out details that don't seem important at the time.
I know, but then you're thinking about it and you're like, I'm saying this and it doesn't make any fucking sense. Okay, he crossed the paths of police again in 1971 when he tried to kidnap a 15-year-old girl. For this, he received a 5-year sentence. Once more, having a relationship with a female pen pal who he married in 1975 after he got out of prison. Women really like to write to this dude in prison.
Apparently.
She was this one a friend? This one was a friend of somebody he knew, though, or a relative. His stepdaughters accused him of molesting them, so he took off, staying with relatives and hopping from house to house for a time.
I'm glad he left.
I'm sure he did molest them, right? Like,
yeah.
It was a year later that he met Ottis Toole at a soup kitchen, having begun drifting once more after more accusations were made against him, and he moved to Jacksonville with Toole. They moved in with Toole's parents or his mom. It said both in various articles. So I don't know if his dad was there or not. There, Lucas got legitimate work, but he also hung out a lot with Toole's young niece, Frida Powell, who went by Becky. I know. I know. I was like, is her middle name Rebecca? Are you going to explain? No, they're not.
No, it's probably related to me somehow, or Joe, because that's... You have a perfectly good name, but you don't get... You get called Frank.
Like Toole, Powell had an intellectual impairment, and I think that he must not have met her right away because the math wasn't evening out for me, because they said she was 11 when they met, but later... She's 15 and that one's pretty concrete. Okay. So I think that there was a passage of time, slight, just like a year, before he actually met her, for her to be 11. From 1979 to 1981, the two men worked together for a roofing company. In 1982, Lucas and Powell ran away together to avoid child welfare agents trying to put her into homes. So I guess they left Ottis Toole behind. She'd already escaped a juvenile detention center previously. By this time, Powell was around 15 and Lucas was 46. He said they had a romantic relationship. They drifted across the country hitchhiking until they hit California, where he got a job. The boss's wife, and again, this is all kind of a weird jumble. The boss's wife asked him and Becky to take on caring for her 82-year-old mother who lived in Texas. So Lucas and Powell hopped back on the road and went to... I was like, what about this man made you think he was trustworthy?
I was going to say, as one does, hey, could you and your 15-year-old wife go to Texas and take care of my mother?
Right?
Either that or she really didn't like her mother.
That could be. So they hopped on the road. They went down to Texas, where they moved in to care for Kate Rich. They only made it a couple days before it was discovered they weren't doing anything to care for the elderly woman, and they were writing her checks to
of course.
Yes. They were kicked out. A minister picked up Lucas and Powell as they were once more hitchhiking and found Lucas a job as a roofer near the House of Prayer commune he ran. He ran a commune.
But it was the House of Prayer commune.
That's right. Then Powell, he got him an apartment on the commune and everything. Then Powell disappeared and was never seen again. Becky Powell, little Becky, 15. Lucas claimed she'd gone to the bus stop to return home because she was missing Florida. And I'm like, she was missing, the juvenile detention center? But when a Texas Ranger picked him up and charged him with having an unlawful firearm, they discovered he was a suspect in the murder of the elderly woman he'd been caring for, whose house he'd been kicked out of, and who had been murdered. It was 1983, and while he at first denied killing her, he ultimately confessed to killing both her and Powell, who had obviously never gotten on a bus, though her body was never found. Lucas would later claim he was abused in prison by both the inmates and the police. He said they tortured his genitalia. He claimed that the police other than that physical torture there, beat him up and did all kinds of things, stuck him in a cold room with no bedding, refused him his cigarettes. I was like, ooh, torture, buddy. Like, of all the other shit. They wouldn't give me my cigarettes. While there, he attempted suicide once, but then started confessing to a bunch of murders the police asked him about. With these confessions pouring in, a previous conviction for his mother's murder on top of the other convictions for burglary and attempted kidnapping, police bought his confessions hook, line, and sinker.
Why?
Transferring him to a county jail in November 1983, where the Lucas Task Force was set up to start following up on his many murders. And these were Texas Rangers. They started trying to connect him to these, they were going to different jurisdictions because they knew he'd been drifting. And so they were pulling every crime imaginable to try and get him to confess to this crime. He ultimately confessed to over 600 murders, 213 of which the Rangers took seriously, though only 28 appeared to match the crimes in any meaningful way. Here's the kicker, though. The Rangers thought he had a very low IQ, but they would later discover he was excellent at reading people, them included. In order to get his confessions, the Rangers gave him a ton of privileges, often taking him out to restaurants and letting him have free range at the jail. They brought him steaks and milkshakes. He was basically being rewarded for these confessions. They gave him, and by free range, they gave him codes for some of the gates. He had access to the records. And of course, the confessions kept on coming. But then one day...
I cannot roll my eyes hard enough.
I know. But then one day...
What the actual fuck?
He started recanting. When they insisted that he'd given details only the killer could have known, he was able to tell them how he'd made these deductions. They were equating to confessions. For example, in one case, he identified a victim in a photograph with multiple people in it. They were like, all right, point out who she was. I mean... That's a good way to do, hey, do you really know who this victim was? He explained that she was the only one wearing glasses in that photo and that they'd already showed him crime scene photos in which there were clearly glasses sitting there on a surface, and that was how he'd connected it.
Oh.
Not that dumb, sadly. The confessions were taped, and when his confessions started being questioned, other cops listened to the tapes, and it was clear in the tapes that he would start his story in one direction, then change the story, tweak it to match whatever the Rangers were saying to him or trying to lead him to. He was bright enough to figure out exactly what they were trying to get him to say. Also, they kept stupidly not only showing him crime scene photos from which there are a billion clues anybody could take from looking at those. Oh, well, that throat is clearly slit. So, yeah, I slit her throat. Yeah. Jesus. And, but they would also let him read through the files to refresh his memory.
Nobody in this organization said, perhaps that's not a good idea.
Has anybody ever mistaken the Texas Rangers for being geniuses? I don't think so.
But somebody must have had some common sense. Someone in that organization somewhere must have had some common sense.
So this all came out publicly when a district attorney in McLennan County looked into his confession to 3 murders in Waco. This DA, Vic Faisal, reviewed the confession and looked at the actual crimes, quickly realizing Lucas couldn't have done it. He spoke with a journalist, Hugh Ainsworth, and they did more research by looking through all the crimes the Rangers had marked as closed. They were closing and clearing these cases.
Of course.
Because of the confessions. The murders occurred over 11,000 miles in a 1-month period. He would have had to have driven. And I saw another article and I couldn't re-find it after I read it, but it was something like 300 something. It was some insane number of miles every single day that would have had to have been covered. And that's not even breaking it down per crime and where that crime was. And this one might have been 900 miles. And,
Yeah, it was an average.
Yes.
Jesus.
By the way, he claimed these were crimes, many of which he committed with Toole. So this is where he's kind of saying they went on this thing.
Crime spree.
nothing adds up. I was trying to like connect things and I could not connect things. And of course, these are ones that Toole was like, I didn't do this. And then he later was like, oh yeah, no, I did it. Lucas said they killed anyone they came across, male or female, sex workers and hitchhikers and migrants, and they killed them every way imaginable except for poison. He also said Toole liked to cannibalize some of them afterward, and the two were in fact recorded on the prison line discussing eating human.
Ugh.
You remember how I used to like to pour the blood? There was a whole quoted thing about it. Ugh. Lucas did have an old station wagon during the supposed crime spree because he did a lot of hitchhiking with Becky too. But that still would have been an insane amount of ground to cover. It's just not realistic. Like people would take a break at some point.
Yes.
Also, there were documented alibis of him being far, far away from many of the crimes committed, and the same was likely true of Toole. But who was never pursued for these crimes the way Lucas was. Mm-hmm. So, between the two men investigating Lucas, a report called the Lucas Report. He had the Lucas Task Force. He had the Lucas Report. This dude had all the attention he could ever dream of.
I can see when he first came in getting really excited. Oh, my God.
Of course, because you want the cases. You want to give that to the families.
Cases, but it's like the guy who lied about being a doctor. Why didn't anybody stop and say, okay, what the actual fuck?
Right. Let's see some sort of paperwork. So they created the Lucas Report. And when they outed the Rangers for using Lucas to clear cases they simply didn't want to put the time in on, the Rangers came after Faisal, who had gone public. And Faisal's office ended up under investigation. He was charged by the FBI with multiple crimes. During this time, he not only got reelected to his post while being investigated, but was ultimately acquitted of all charges.
Good. With
the Attorney General saying it was clear that the charges had been nothing but retaliation.
Right.
They were mocked up. The Rangers gave up on Lucas and dropped him back in prison where his special treatment ended. Through all this, he had a real good run.
Yeah, he did.
Through all this, Lucas was convicted of 10 homicides in addition to that of his mom. One of these murders, a Jane Doe called Orange Socks at the time because she was completely nude except for
orange socks.
I saw the crime scene photo. It was, in fact, very distinctly orange socks. And who would later be identified as Deborah Jackson, earned him a death sentence, his only one of the 11 homicide convictions. The victims whose deaths he was convicted of were Linda Phillips, a teacher who disappeared August 8th, 1970, and was found 2 days later stabbed 26 times and raped. He said he forced her car off the road and used a gun to get her into the car. 30-year-old cop Clemmy Curtis, a lot of C's, handcuffed in the woods and shot once on August 3rd, 1976. He said Toole helped with this one. 17-year-old Lily Pearl Darty, who put her thumb out for the wrong person on November 11th, 1977, and got raped and shot for it. 17-year-old Diana Bryant, who was strangled with a phone cord on April 26, 1981, during a break-in to her apartment. 65-year-old Glenna Faye Biggers, who was found December 20th, 1982, with a knife in her stomach and a fork in her throat. He said he robbed her. Yeah. 26-year-old Laura Purchase, who was raped and strangled March 5th, 1983, and found in the woods where a fire had started on March 17th. Though he was convicted of this crime and never exonerated, DNA testing in 2008 proved Lucas did not kill her, and another man who had been suspected was investigated and charged with the crime. 16-year-old Laura Donez, who skipped school on April 16th, 1983. She was raped, beaten, and strangled, then her body burned. Lucas did lead police to the place her body was discovered.
Okay.
In 1990, I'm just like, okay, but did he look at a file and did it map it out? And was he clever enough to find it? I don't know. Like, I have a hard time believing any of his, but there were ones where he led them to.
Right.
Yeah. In 1998, George W. Bush, who was governor at the time, commuted the death sentence to life in prison. Lucas had appealed and said that he only knew the details of the crimes because he'd read the files. This having been established is true of many of the other cases, and the fact that he had been at work were both a timesheet and witnesses on that Halloween night. Work at in Jacksonville, by the way, Florida, for the Texas murder on Halloween night in 1979. And that was the Jane Doe. That was Orange Socks.
Okay.
So, because that was his death row conviction, he was removed from death row. Deborah was not identified, by the way, until 2019. So she was Orange Socks until 2019.
Okay.
18 years after Lucas's death of heart failure in prison on March 12, 2001, he was 64. And that was by DNA that she was. He was briefly known as the serial killer with the most prolific serial killer ever, of course. But now it's debated how many murders he actually committed. I mean, his mom, he certainly did. While he was convicted of 11 homicides total, it's generally thought that the only definitive murders he committed were the 3 consisting of his mom, Toole's niece, Becky Powell, and the elderly woman he cared for, Kate Rich. He did lead investigators to 2 graves, which he claimed were Powell and Rich, but they were never able to definitively identify them, but I feel it seems likely.
Okay.
For Powell, he said he stabbed her in the chest, had sex with her corpse, then dismembered her, scattering her body. He also called her the only woman he'd ever loved.
Ooh.
He then coaxed Rich to help look for Powell, and I was like, really? Like a 70-something-year-old woman was like, I'll come with you. He stabbed her in the chest as well, carving a cross on her, and then after she was dead, having sex with her corpse and stuffing her body into a drainage pipe. He liked the attention he got, and this didn't stop with the Rangers. He granted many interviews. You can go on. There are a billion videos. There is a Netflix documentary about the confession killer. He loved to talk and be listened to. And it really stoked his ego. A social worker had gotten to know him in his prison stint for his mother's murder and described him as, quote, a very inadequate individual with feelings of insecurity and inferiority. Vic Feazell actually has a page dedicated to the Lucas file because he has his own website and he has a podcast at this point, so you can listen to him talking about this man, and he would be the go-to to listen to that. And then there is the Lucas file in there. They created a searchable database so that families of murder victims can search out evidence involving specific murder victims and see and that he confessed to, because his drive is, let's find the real killers if we can. So I think that's a good thing to be doing. I did not find that it has been successful. I didn't look for that long. So if I were really researching this, not just for a podcast, then that would be something I'd want to know. My sources were henryleelucas.com, vicfeazell.com, biography, and Wikipedia.
Of course. There's always got to be a little nod to Wikipedia.
Yeah. How I put it on there, though, I went there for pictures. So it was my source for some pictures because their pictures are Creative Commons.
So true. All right. So I am going to talk about Jade Janks. And I think with a name like Jade Janks, you should either be a superhero or a supervillain.
Yeah.
Or a plucky girl reporter who has a couple of knives concealed in her boots and a fake lipstick that's really a gun. Or a professional wrestler. Or at least the lead singer of a rock and roll band.
It's oddly specific.
It is. I was so enamored of her name. I was like, oh, she could be this or she could be this. Or anyway. So, who is Jade Janks, you wonder? She was born in Texas in October. We talk about Texas a lot. Because there's a lot of people there.
That's very large.
Jade Janks was born in Texas in October of 1983. So I do want to point out, despite the fact that this story begins in the 80s, there is no reference or connection to the Satanic Panic. When she was 10 years old, her parents got divorced. 2 years later, her mother married Tom Merriman. And I was like, hey, I also got a new stepdad when I was 12 years old. But my story is much more boring. And I am eternally grateful for that. So, the story goes that Jade was not a Tom Merriman fan at first, but he won her over. He acted as a trusted paternal figure in her life, and they became very close. It's like the Brady Bunch, but without the polyester. So 2 years later, Jade got a brand new half-brother named Cash, who she reportedly had a very close bond with, despite the 14-year difference in their ages. As they got older, as she got older, they referred to each other as father and daughter. Mm-hmm. That's how close they were. And according to the sources I looked at, Jade's mother and Merriman divorced and remarried each other more than once between 2002 and 2008. So I haven't lived that scenario, but I've observed it in others, and it will fuck up your children. Sure as shit.
Yeah, if you already had kids when you did it. So, I mean, some of them, the ones I'm aware of, didn't have kids when it happened. So I haven't seen the other.
Oh, God.
But I'm just like, I don't think I'd remarry somebody a second time unless there was a really good reason, like a legal.
I
can have access such and such.
I could name names, but I'm not going to. I knew somebody and I was like, wait, your parents married each other and divorced each other twice. And there were like other marriages that, I was like, no wonder you're so fucked up. And it was like, hey, I'm like, dude,
just saying.
Seriously. So anyway, Jade was popular. She was cute. Lots of pictures of her. She was outgoing and ambitious. And she had a dream of opening her own interior design studio one day. And through everything, throughout her life, her bond with Merriman remained strong. So Merriman's life was going in the opposite direction of Jade's. She's ambitious, she's working hard, and he's circling. He was an alcoholic who abused prescription sleeping pills. In 2013, he followed his personal passion and opened a butterfly farm. I'm sorry. I keep coming back to a simple what the fuck. I mean, I'm like, I don't know, and I couldn't find why a butterfly farm. I don't know if he wanted to reconnect with nature or help others reconnect with nature, or he thought he could make money at it, or he thought
passionate about butterflies.
He thought raising butterflies would make him drink less. I'm like, I was like,
you know what? You'd think it would.
I read it.
I'm sad. I'm going to go into a room full of butterflies.
I stopped and went, or eat, rubbing my eyes. I'm like, let me read that again. Yep, no, it said butterfly farm. At any rate, Jade, now a young and motivated professional, in April of 2020, that is not how I wrote that, but it was in April of 2020 because it's during the shutdown, bought the house next door to his in Solana Beach, California, to help take care of him on his troubled journey through addiction. And kudos to her, because after working in other design firms, she opened her own in 2018. So their relationship remained very close, a doting daughter helping to take care of her aging stepfather. And so life just bopped along, as life does, until December of 2020. So Jade was at Merriman's house helping to clean up. He was in a facility for physical rehab because he had been hospitalized following a bad fall at home. I want to say he was like 62. I'm not positive of that, roughly. So yeah, he had been in the hospital and then he had gone to a facility for physical rehab, not drug rehab, which he did that occasionally too. So she was in his home office when she discovered, she looked over, I think she bumped his computer or the mouse pad or whatever. And she looks over and she said, I actually read this quote in more than one place. Those are my boobs. Yeah, she saw this picture. It was a naked photo of her. An older nude photo of her. So she did what I think anyone would do and went digging in his files on his computer.
Yeah, admittedly.
Found hundreds of additional nude and compromising photos of herself on his computer.
But once she clearly didn't know these were taken. So
she recognized some of the photos as they were pictures she herself had taken in her teens and early 20s and sent to a boyfriend, which is certainly her right to do. She did not send them to him, so she has no idea how her stepfather has gotten these pictures. But as she went through the photos, something else became obvious. A lot of the photos seemed to come from what looked like cameras hidden in the house where she grew up. So a goodly proportion of them were taken before she turned 18, and all of them were taken without her knowledge or permission. So he had actually hidden cameras to take her picture. So try to put yourself in her shoes. This trusted parental figure has taken compromising photos of you since you were a teenager. And this is someone you trust. And you have bought a house next door to help take care of him. Jade said, it was the most violating, just awful, gut-wrenching feeling ever. I remember I felt sick. I felt I couldn't even touch my own skin. She was just completely grossed out. So her thoughts turned to revenge, and I have to say, I don't blame her. She actually went about it a lot more calmly and patiently than I think I would have in this situation. Because I think this is a betrayal of the highest order. So she decided to confront and kill Tom Merriman. She convinced a friend named Alex Roach to help her. And on December 30th, she texted Roach, I have struggled with moral issues, yet I will not be looking over my shoulder. So I made the call. As usual, Jade was at the facility to pick Merriman up when he was released. She made sure on the ride home that he had alcohol and sedatives.
Okay.
And helped him, let him get good and dosed up. Her next text to Roach, I just dosed the hell out of him, stopping for whiskey. Let me know when he's waking up. I really don't want to be the one to do this. So Roach was supposed to come over and actually do the deed. And it didn't specify exactly what happened, but he got stuck wherever he was. Whatever part of town he was in, he could not leave. He couldn't get away. He stopped answering her texts. So as Merriman faded in and out of consciousness, she panicked. And she didn't want to miss her window of opportunity. Apparently, this all took place in her vehicle. Because she'd gotten home and some of the texts were about how she didn't know how, you have to get here. I have to get him into the house.
Okay.
And she put a plastic bag over his head to suffocate him. When that didn't appear to be working, she strangled him with her bare hands.
That takes a lot.
Yeah. It's not quick.
Yeah.
Or pretty. So a friend of Jade's stopped by to see her shortly after the murder happened. Jade told this friend what happened and begged them to help her move the body, but the friend refused and called the police. And you can't blame the friend on this one. So on January 1st, so the friend called, but the police didn't blaze out there at that moment. It wasn't until the next day. It's on January 1st, the police stopped by to do a welfare check on Merriman, and they found his body wrapped in a blanket and covered with garbage in the driveway between the two houses. So after he was dead, she was able to get him out of the truck or car and dragged him a little way and just threw garbage. I'm like, well, that's pretty fucking fitting to cover him with garbage.
Yeah. Not the savviest way to get away with murder, though.
No. So when the friend called the police were like, well, what do you think happened? What exactly are you reporting? And the person was, I think she might have killed her stepfather. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't I saw the body. It wasn't I think that's why they waited the day. So the police immediately questioned Jade, who denied any involvement, despite that there was a ton of evidence pointing right at her. So she was arrested the next day. The trial started almost 2 years later on December 21st, 2022. Jade originally said that Merriman overdosed in her car and that she panicked and tried to conceal the body so that nobody would think she was involved in his death. The texts and records from Jade's phone told a different story, and the prosecution used them as evidence of premeditation. All those texts she sent to Roach. When she took the stand, she did not deny it. She didn't deny anything. She claimed that she hadn't wanted to kill Merriman, just confront him and scare him. She had wanted Roach there as backup, she said, to make sure things didn't go too far, but the situation just spiraled out of her control. Mm-hmm. She also testified about finding the photos on his computer and the sense of broken trust and betrayal that she felt. After a short deliberation, the jury found her guilty of first-degree murder, and she was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Merriman's brother, Terrence, said that Tom didn't deserve to die by the torture the killer put him through.
Are you sure?
I beg to differ.
Yeah.
I beg to differ. I find it interesting and bizarre that Terrence used the word deserve. Because I'm like, what exactly do you deserve for taking advantage of a teenage girl living under your roof that you're supposed to be protecting?
But that's the thing, is that, I mean, I had that whole conversation with my husband after watching that, again, a friend of the family. It's very disturbing. Mm-hmm. And I already have a personal implicit bias that I work on constantly against the Mormon Church. But the Mormon Church knew what this man was doing to a child. And because he confessed it, they said, God would take care of it. And did not tell the family, did not tell the police. And I was like,
that in the ear.
I was obviously very enraged by this, and it does not help my bias. But I will never understand the mentality of men, some men, clearly.
Not all men.
To look at something like this and think it's no big deal. And I obviously don't understand women either. I think more men than women tend to think it's no big deal. And I'm like, how do you think this is not a big deal?
What I couldn't find was anything more about her mother. You know, because they got together, they married and divorced more than once. So I'm like, did her mother have some suspicion of what was going on? And I also find it such a harsh sentence. I grant you there was premeditation, but
yeah.
What?
I mean, I guess the thing is that it's not self-defense, right? But isn't it kind of self-defense when you don't know what that could have led to? But I get that in the sense of how it is used,
yes,
it's not self-defense. I feel in a way it is, but
I definitely feel that way. I just this is one of those cases that just enraged me, that he manipulated her on so many levels, and obviously was still looking at the pictures. Because it was the screensaver. It wasn't just that he had these hidden and buried. It was something he still pulled out and looked at and got his jollies. And he thought that was okay to do this to this woman who just loved him as a father. God damn, this makes me so fucking mad.
Yeah, this is how I felt with like Charlotte Araujo and having to do all that reading and watch videos of these smug ass women stating that she deserved it.
No.
And ask for it, like, just how dare you? Like,
so the guy,
nobody has asked for that.
The guy in France, we talked about a couple of weeks ago, killed 5 people, and he got out in 22 years.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And she, is. They made some point that if she got out in 25 years, she would be the same age he was when she killed him. See, I was like, I have violent impulses that I don't give into, but I think drugging him and asphyxiating him.
Yeah, she was trying to actually do it in a clean and...
She was trying to do it in a somewhat kind manner. Yes. I would have probably not been kind.
Right.
There might have been fire
There
involved.
would have been violence from the beginning in the planning. So, yeah.
There might have been a nail gun.
There might have been a nail gun.
I've got a story I'm working on that I've got to work a nail gun into. I've decided.
Okay.
So, I have a friend who's going to actually let me use a nail gun so I can see what it feels like.
Yeah, that's what I've done in the past because I have nail gun in something, and of course, my husband has he has various tools because he's very handy. So like, went out there, let me do that. And then I have to ask him a billion questions. I'm like, how would it work if I did this? How strong is it? And then you got to look that up. How fast does this travel? What would it go through?
I said, do you have a nail gun? Yes. Can you show me how to use it sometime? Sure. And then I said, and the question was, what kind?
Yeah.
And I'm like, there are kind, I don't know. And then I said, just out of curiosity, if I just came to you and said, can I borrow a nail gun? Would you just hand me a nail gun?
Of course. They're not going to think you're going to murder somebody.
And the answer was, sure.
Yeah.
It's like, shit. There are people who will not trust me with power tools. But that's all because I wanted to put, when I was in graduate school, I had this roommate named Bert. And she and I had some pink flamingo lawn ornaments, and I just wanted to get an electric drill and drill a couple of small holes in the floor, in the hardwood floor, so I could stand the flamingos up in the living room. And she's like, okay, new rule from now on, you don't get power tools. So I would do creative things. I would do arts and crafts with them, not...
Okay, it's like Jeffrey using my kitchen knife as a screwdriver when he couldn't find his, and I was like, why are knives out here?
But it warms my heart to know that there are people out there who are like, yes, I would give you a power tool, no questions asked.
You're a grown-ass adult.
Even though I don't act like it very often. Hardly ever if I can help it.
All right, I have a pleasant photo story to end it on.
Oh, good.
It's just little. It's just quick. But so I had to put in our passports and stuff for us to go to Mexico. And in Joffrey's passport, because we had to travel a lot for work, is this picture of me back when we were dating. Aww. It's not even a particularly good one, in my opinion, but there is a facial expression. I said, I get why this would remind you of me. It's like a sarcastic facial
Do I get to see
expression.
the picture?
No.
Aw. I didn't ask you to publish it. I just want to see it.
But it was either homecoming or prom picture.
Aw.
It was before I put my hair up and everything because the one my dad took that I had.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a little picture of me in there.
That's so sweet. That is adorable.
So there you go. There's a positive picture.
That is absolutely adorable.
All right. So I don't know. Maybe we'll figure out a way to lighten shit up next time. I don't know. Maybe we won't. Because I feel there was a lot of heavy in the last few episodes.
I may purposefully look for something a little lighter.
I reached a point researching this where I was like, I'm just going to be done for a little while. It was basically because I researched Cheryl Araujo and then little Adam Walsh in order. And those were the two hardest aspects of it, really. And I was like, oh, I need a break.
Yeah.
And then I had to get back. I actually thought about changing and not doing Henry Lee Lucas last night. And I was all, I might as well. They were tied together. It all comes together. But I was just like, I don't have time or energy to figure out a lighter topic. That was my thing. I sat there and I thought about it for a little bit. And I was like, nothing's coming to me right now. So I did it. But yeah, like,
Yeah,
because I feel like Adam Walsh's death was violent and awful, and he was so tiny. And there's that little picture of him in his little league that is always the one they put out.
Yes.
You know, that was the one they released every time. And I was like, how could you wallop to death this sweet little bug? Like, it got to me. So I was like, I need a break. So I went out and I had 2 glasses of wine with friends, and then I finished.
One of these, and I'm not going to say which one, took me 1,000 years to write because I would be working on it and researching, and then I would get distracted by Facebook. Then I'd be doing something else, and then somebody would send me a question, and I would.
Okay, admittedly, I spent way too much time. I got sucked in. It popped up in my feed, and it was a Photoshop editing requests page.
I saw that.
Oh my God, on Facebook, and it is the funniest. Damn. So I've gotten sucked in, and because I'm going through and responding to like the funny the edits people are doing, so I'm super interacting. So they're all popping up in my feed at this point. Just going in there because it's like, could you remove this person from this, or the background people or whatever. And instead they're doing crazy shit like that dude that went viral a long time ago for...
Yes.
They go to him to ask him for edits, and they're always a goofy edit. And so...
Oh, people send it... Okay, because I looked at this a little bit. That was one of my distractions. They'll send in a picture that's like a bride and 6 bridesmaids, and they'll be like... Could you take out everyone but me and my best friend over here on the... I'm like, really? Why didn't you just take a picture of the 2 of you? Or go take a picture now?
Well, it's like siblings with exes, and they wanted their exes included in pictures at weddings and shit. And I'm like, every time we look at these wedding photos now, you're moron exes in there.
Yep.
Because you insisted, because we're serious. We're never fucking serious. Give me a break.
But we have...
now they're there, always.
Yep. We have family pictures. I have pictures of family pictures with little boyfriends in them. I post them too on Facebook. I
have one picture with one dude I went on a date with. I did not. I was like, I did most of my dating not in the come and pick me up at home way.
Yes.
And the dude that there's a picture of me with, it's hysterical. It was one date. We were going out. We were supposed to be going out with friends, and he twisted it. We were even going to go Dutch, and he's like, I'd like to pay. And I was like, okay. He was much older than I was.
Ooh.
Yeah. He was a grown-ass adult. I was a teenager. And then we went to see a movie where we worked together at the theater. And one of the ushers there pulled me aside and said, just so you know, he's been telling all of us he's hitting that tonight. And I was like, oh, he sure isn't. And he was never going to, because I was never attracted to him in the first place. Yeah. We were going out as friends.
Yeah.
Because of something that had happened. And we're like, okay, let's do this. So, yeah, that's it. Well, that's it. I don't even have a picture of, like, the others I dated.
So I had a high school boyfriend, and I dated him from, like, the ages of 17 to 20.
Wow. Yeah. I married the only dude. I didn't even date Jeff for that long before I married him.
So Oh, I didn't date Joe that long before
you
I married him. But it was, you know,
I guess if you know, you know, right?
first love and, you know. So, yeah, I'm sure his family has, I don't know who is left because I know both of his parents are gone. But, I mean, there were, so, especially
But you've
that
also
age,
stayed, like, in contact with some of the people you dated, right?
yes.
I have
And
not.
I am still in contact with him. I mean, it's not, we don't talk on Facebook every day, but, you know. We wish each other a happy birthday, and every once in a while I'll say, hey, his mom made me, before his mom died, she made me a quilt. And it's this gorgeous, so every fall I get the quilt out. That's my quilt I watch TV with. And I usually message him and just say, just wanted you to know I'm thinking about your mom. And he was really nice. He said some very nice things when my mom passed a few years ago. So it's like, it's a very friendly, but not particularly close relationship.
Yeah.
But yes, and there are a few other people I dated that I was like, sure, there was one, though, I accepted a friend request from. And then I started getting these messages. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? They were so sexual in nature. I blushed to read them. And I was like, if I get hit by a bus today, my husband is going to see this and it's going to be awful. I don't want that because there's nothing. So I unfriended and blocked him. So I was like, what part of, are you a grandfather now? It says, send me a dick pic.
Good Lord.
Which he didn't do, but it was like, yeah.
But I wasn't hitting on you, though. I was just asking a question.
I was just making conversation. I was just being polite. That's what I get.
No, thank you, sir. Yeah. So I just, okay. On that note.
Okay, it's time to go. It's time for me to stop talking.
Yeah, you know, it's time. 3 in a row, it's super late. I'm hungry.
Yes, and I still have to call my rad to come pick me up.
That's true. So, thank you for listening.
Yes, and we'll be back next week.
As always, if you would like to support the show, check us out on buymeacoffee.com/mayhem. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram or at our website, mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com.
Please like, rate, and review, follow, and share wherever your favorite podcasts are downloaded.
Thank you for listening and supporting our podcast. We'll be back next week with more shenanigans.